Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts.
Every year, the cruise industry pours billions and billions of dollars into building these massive floating megacities, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive capital investment.
Right, and we hear all about the christenings, the maiden voyages, the shiny new amenities. But today, we are asking a different kind of million-dollar question, which is, what happens when those billion-dollar assets actually start to age?
It's honestly the defining structural question of the industry right now.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because if you want to understand where the market is heading or, what executives are betting their capital on, you just have to look at how they handle their aging fleets.
Makes sense.
So we are tracing three incredibly different paths for three very different vessels today. We're looking at a ship getting redeployed to pioneer an emerging market, a vessel getting completely gutted and rebuilt to survive in the luxury space, and an iconic ocean liner facing, well, the ultimate end of the line. Let's jump into that first path. Because Cordelia Cruises is making a massive play in the Indian market right now.
They really are.
They just announced they are tripling their fleet, going from 1 ship to 3 by the end of 2027. And, their strategy proves that an older hull can be incredibly valuable if you are establishing a new market, because they aren't going to a shipyard to order brand new builds.
Right, they're acquiring existing tonnage.
Exactly.
They're bringing in 2 specific ships to join their current vessel, which is the Cordelia Empress. So in late 2026, they take delivery of the Cordelia Sky, which is actually transferring over from Norwegian Cruise Line.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then in late 2027, they add the Cordelia Sun, which, you might know as the Norwegian Sun.
Okay, let's unpack this, because from the outside, watching a company buy older, 2001 built ships like the Norwegian Sun, instead of building custom, flashy new ships, feels almost counterintuitive.
It does seem that way at first glance.
Right. It makes me think of someone starting a new rideshare company. You don't go out and buy a fleet of brand new Ferraris to build your network.
Definitely not.
You buy a fleet of incredibly reliable used Honda Civics because you need dependable route infrastructure, not flash. I mean, is that essentially the math Cordelia is doing here?
What's fascinating here is how perfectly that metaphor captures the maturity of the Indian cruise market.
Really?
Yeah, Cordelia's CEO, Jurgen Balaam, actually laid out this exact logic. He noted that over the next 2 years, their entire focus is on refining and redistributing capacity rather than reinventing the network.
Oh, so building the foundation.
Exactly. The Indian cruise market is transitioning. It's moving away from being a one-off novelty vacation and evolving into a scalable year-round industry.
Which means financial risk is the biggest enemy, right? Because if you commission a billion-dollar megaship, you are on the hook for a massive guaranteed daily premium from your passengers just to pay off the shipyard debt.
You hit the nail on the head. By acquiring the Sky and the Sun, which are, known, proven platforms, Cordelia can focus its capital entirely on building out a massive multi-home port dominance.
Right.
And the logistics of acquiring these ships are just staggering. Take the Norwegian Sun. It literally just finished an 11-day dry dock in Singapore a little over a week ago on April 13th, 2026.
Oh, wow.
But rather than just handing the keys over in Asia, Norwegian is putting the ship through this epic repositioning journey before Cordelia takes delivery.
Yeah, I was looking at that routing, and it is a massive farewell lap. I mean, it does a 16-night voyage from Singapore all the way to Port Louis, Mauritius. It hits Thailand, the Maldives, Seychelles, and Madagascar.
It's a huge itinerary.
And then it's an 11-night run down to South Africa, followed by a 22-night voyage from Cape Town straight up the West African coast to Southampton.
Right, and it doesn't stop there.
No. It spends the summer in Northern Europe, crosses the Atlantic to New York in October, and finally heads to Miami. I mean, why take this incredibly convoluted route instead of just sailing straight to the handover port?
The simple answer is revenue generation. Repositioning a ship empty costs an absolute fortune in fuel, crew wages, port fees, you name it.
Right, you're just burning money.
Exactly.
Yep.
So by turning the repositioning into these exotic multi-week itineraries along the African coast, Norwegian is monetizing the transit. It allows them to tap into the bucket list traveler market, turning a logistical expense into a highly profitable global farewell tour before that 2027 handover.
That makes total sense. And once Cordelia finally gets these ships, they're deploying them in a very deliberate cascade across India, right? They are blanketing Mumbai, Kochi, and Chennai.
Yes, very strategically.
So the Empress is doing heavy lifting in 2026 out of Chennai, with routes up to Visakhapatnam and Puducherry. And it also has this massive 10-night open-jaw route between Chennai and Singapore starting in July.
Wait, industry jargon check for anyone unfamiliar. An open-jaw route means the ship doesn't do a round trip, right?
That is correct. In an open-jaw sailing, you board the ship in one city, like Chennai, and you disembark in a completely different city, like Singapore.
Got it.
You literally fly into one port and fly home from another. It's incredibly popular for longer, more exploratory itineraries.
And it seems perfectly targeted at international tourists, because if you want to explore the Indian subcontinent, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia, booking multi-city land travel, domestic flights, and hotels is like an intense logistical headache.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
But a cruise offers a secure floating hotel. You unpack once, and you wake up in a new port every day.
And Cordelia is banking heavily on that inbound international tourism. And they're matching the hardware to the specific market demands, too.
Well, when the Cordelia Sky arrives in October 2026, it immediately takes over the core routes out of Mumbai. The Sky is about 25% larger than the Empress, but more importantly, it has significantly more balcony cabins.
Ah, and balconies drive premium ticket prices.
Exactly. Mumbai has the demographic demand to support those premium fares. Then, as the broader market matures, the Sky will shift down to Kochi, and the newly arriving Sun will take over Mumbai in 2027. It's a highly engineered deployment cascade.
So Cordelia's strategy proves that an older hull is an incredible asset if you are building the infrastructure of a new emerging market. But that completely flips if we look at our second scenario, right?
It really does.
If you aren't moving to India, if you are keeping an older vessel in an established, hyper-competitive space like the premium luxury market, that older hull suddenly becomes a massive liability.
Yeah, it forces cruise lines to completely rethink the vessel.
Yeah.
In the luxury space, you cannot just put down fresh carpet, change the drapes, and call it a day.
Which brings us to the Oceania Marina. This is a roughly 12,250 guest ship. It's been sailing since 2011, and Oceania Cruises just announced it's going into a massive shipyard dry dock in October 2026.
Right. This is the first major overhaul under what they're calling their Oceanian AXT program.
Okay.
They're framing it as a comprehensive structural transformation. They're completely redesigning every single stateroom. We're talking about ripping out the existing layouts, bringing in entirely new furnishings, and completely rebuilding the bathrooms.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though.
Go for it.
Because you look at the ship's history, and the Marina just went through a pretty major modernization in mid-2024.
That's true, they did.
Yeah, they added the Aquamar kitchen, they installed a new open-air pizzeria, they refreshed a bunch of public spaces. So if they just spent all that capital updating the ship barely 2 years ago, why put it through a massive down-to-the-studs dry dock in 2026? It sounds like financial overkill.
Well, the luxury arms race is relentless, and that dictates the financial math here. Rival cruise lines are pouring billions into entirely new classes of ships with unimaginable cutting-edge amenities.
Oh, so they have to keep up.
Exactly. If Oceania wants a vessel built in 2011 to command top-tier, $10,000 plus pricing alongside ships built in 2025, the baseline of what defines luxury has to constantly move up. Jason Montague, Oceania's chief luxury officer, actually addressed this.
What did he say?
He said, "At Oceania Cruises, raising the bar is not an initiative, it is our mindset."
So the 2024 updates were just about keeping the culinary offerings trendy. I mean, adding a pizzeria is surface level.
Yeah.
But the 2026 dry dock is structural.
Yes, exactly. Because when guests pay premium luxury fares today, they do not tolerate a dated bathroom. They expect marble finishes and oversized rainforest-style showers.
Right.
And installing those requires heavy, incredibly expensive marine plumbing and bulkhead work. It is structural engineering, not interior decorating.
And it completely changes the public spaces, too, because they are expanding the Grand Lounge to add a new venue called the Founders Bar. They are tearing out the former artist's loft to build a new chef's studio.
Yeah, which makes total sense for their brand.
It does, because consumer psychology in the luxury space has shifted from static observation to active participation. You don't just want to look at art. You want a hands-on culinary demonstration or a sommelier-led wine tasting.
Right, it's about the experience.
They are even carving out space inside the barista's coffee shop to build the bakery, which is going to serve fresh French and Italian pastries all day.
And they're also doing heavy galley improvements and design refreshes for all the specialty dining venues, the Polo Grill, Red Ginger, Toscana, and Jacques. They're essentially rebuilding the ship from the inside out to ensure it survives the next decade of competition.
You know, you might remember the ship carries a lot of historical weight for the brand, too. The Marina was built by Fincantieri over in Italy, and it was the brand's very first new build back when they were part of Prestige Cruise Holdings.
Yes, that's a great point.
Mary Hart actually christened it in Miami in February 2011, so there's a lot of legacy wrapped up in that steel, which explains why they're fighting so hard to keep it relevant.
And the ship has to earn its keep right up until that shipyard date, too.
Oh, for sure.
The published deployment has her spending the spring of 2026 in the Western Mediterranean. Then she moves north in mid-May for a dense summer of Northern Europe sailings out of Southampton, Copenhagen, and Reykjavik.
Beautiful route.
Yeah, and by December, she crosses back to Miami for Caribbean and Panama Canal routes before finally taking a breath and heading to the shipyard.
Okay, so we have the ship being redeployed and the ship being radically rebuilt. But what happens when a vessel can no longer do either?
Right.
When it can't be sold to an emerging market and the hull is too far gone to be rebuilt for luxury cruisers? That brings us to the third and final path, the end of the line.
We are looking at a ship being sunk for an entirely new purpose. This is the story of the SS United States.
This is a historic 1952 ocean liner. For anyone who loves maritime history, this ship is the absolute pinnacle of mid-century engineering. But she has sat completely dormant, just moored and rusting in Philadelphia for 30 years.
That's such a long time.
And now she is slated to be intentionally sunk to become an artificial reef off the coast of Okaloosa County, Florida.
And the timeline for this has shifted slightly, too.
Yeah.
The sinking was originally projected for early April 2026, but recent reports confirm it has been pushed back. The county is now targeting a window in early May 2026.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you cannot just tow a 990-foot mid-century ocean liner out into the Gulf of Mexico, dynamite the hull, and watch it sink. The physics of that would be a disaster.
Oh, a total disaster, yeah.
So they moved the ship from Philadelphia down to Mobile, Alabama in March of 2025 just to start the preparations. Walk us through the engineering of this. How do you intentionally sink something this massive so it actually works as a reef?
It's a phenomenal feat of maritime engineering. The entire focus at the docks in Mobile right now is environmental remediation and structural preparation.
Okay.
Okaloosa County have contractors meticulously stripping the vessel. They have to remove all fuel, all legacy oil, every trace of hazardous material, and essentially all non-metal components like wiring and insulation.
Wow, just completely gutting it.
You have to strip the ship down to its bare inert steel so it enhances the marine environment rather than poisoning it.
And they are literally reshaping the hull too, right? Because the goal is for the vessel to land perfectly upright on the seafloor, roughly 22 miles west of Destin-Fort Walton Beach. If a ship rolls onto its side on the way down, it ruins the structural appeal for scuba divers.
Making it land upright is entirely about managing the center of gravity and controlling the intake of water. Engineers are making highly specific modifications, actually cutting calculated holes into the hull itself.
Oh, that's fascinating.
During the controlled deployment, water will flood the lowest compartments first, acting as ballast to pull the ship straight down evenly. It ensures the vessel settles upright, which provides the absolute best vertical habitat for marine life and the safest navigable structure for recreational divers.
I do know they aren't sinking the entire original profile, though. The iconic twin funnels and the main mast were removed during the process in Mobile. They are preserving those for a land-based museum exhibit.
Right, which is great for the history buffs.
Definitely. But we need to make it incredibly clear. This project is not happening quietly. There is a fierce, highly emotional debate raging about this sinking.
It really is.
Now, we are strictly impartial on this show. We don't take sides on the politics of it, but we have to look at what the opposition is saying because they are actively trying to stop the operation.
The U.S. Maritime Patriots Alliance has launched a major public advocacy campaign aimed directly at the Okaloosa County Board of Commissioners. They're demanding an immediate halt to the sinking, and their arguments fall into a few very distinct buckets. The first is pure symbolism.
Right. Carlos Camacho Jr., the co-founder of the SS United States Preservation Foundation, has been very vocal about the timing. We are in the middle of the America 250 commemoration.
Yes.
His argument is that intentionally sinking a vessel literally named the United States, especially while there are active maritime and military operations overseas right now, is a terrible look. He argued it would hand adversaries a, quote, symbolic victory they could never achieve on their own.
And beyond the symbolism, the environmental arguments are highly technical. The Alliance is citing EPA-certified laboratory testing that they claim detected hexavalent chromium in the ship's legacy coatings.
Hold on, let's define that. Hexavalent chromium, that is a heavy-duty chemical compound used in marine paint back in the 1950s to prevent rust and corrosion, right?
That's right.
And it is highly toxic if it leaches into the water supply.
Exactly the issue. The opponents argue that submerging a vessel coated in these mid-century chemicals could be disastrous. They are pointing to warnings from experts like Dr. Todd Osborne from the University of Florida's Whitney Laboratory for Marine Bioscience, who cautioned this could create a literal toxic reef in the Gulf.
And they aren't just complaining, they're offering an alternative. The opponents want the county to leave the SS United States alone and instead use decommissioned SL-7 fast sea lift ships. What exactly are those?
So the SL-7s are massive 1970s-era cargo ships that were acquired by the U.S. Navy to move military tanks and helicopters quickly across the ocean.
Okay.
They're currently coming out of the U.S. Maritime Administration's reserve fleet. The argument is that these military logistics ships are already gutted, standardized, and much safer to sink as reefs than a 1950s luxury liner full of legacy chemicals.
Plus, there is a massive bureaucratic hurdle still hanging over this entire project. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has an ongoing Section 106 review. What is the Army Corps looking for there?
Section 106 is a specific provision under the National Historic Preservation Act. It legally forces federal agencies to assess whether their actions will damage historic properties.
I see.
Because the SS United States is a historic artifact, the Army Corps formally identified the sinking as an adverse effect on a historic property, and that review process has to be navigated before the ship can go down.
Okaloosa County is not backing down, though. They maintain a very firm stance that the multi-million-dollar remediation work happening right now in Mobile is specifically designed to eliminate those chemical risks.
They are very confident.
Yeah, they are asserting total confidence that the ship will be scrubbed and prepared in a way that is entirely safe for the surrounding marine ecosystem. They are so confident, in fact, that once they lock in that definitive early May date, they plan to live stream the entire controlled sinking on the Destin Fort Walton Beach YouTube channel.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights a major shift in the economics of Gulf Coast tourism. Destinations are increasingly leaning on these highly engineered, massive, artificial dive sites to draw international scuba tourism and to bolster local fish populations.
Yeah, it's a huge draw.
But as we see with the SS United States, when you combine that aggressive economic ambition with a beloved historic maritime artifact, the collision of historical preservation, environmental fears, and tourism dollars makes these projects incredibly complex and fiercely debated.
So what does this all mean? We started out by looking at how a ship's life cycle reflects the massive structural forces shaping the industry. We have Cordelia Cruises proving that older, reliable hulls are the perfect tool to scale up the booming Indian market.
Right.
We have Oceania Cruises proving that in the luxury space, you have to pour massive capital into structural, down-to-the-studs rebuilds just to defend your market position. And we have an iconic 1952 ocean liner sparking a national debate as it gets stripped down and engineered to become a permanent fixture on the floor of the Gulf of Mexico.
It reveals that these cruise ships are so much more than just transit vehicles. They are massive moving economies. And their impact, whether they are opening a brand new port infrastructure in Chennai, introducing interactive culinary studios to a luxury clientele in the Caribbean, or anchoring a completely new marine ecosystem off the coast of Florida, lasts for decades.
Which leaves you with something pretty wild to think about. If a 990-foot ocean liner from 1952 is causing this much logistical, environmental, and political complexity at the end of its life, what exactly is the end-of-life plan going to look like 30 years from now? When today's 6,000-passenger, LNG-powered, floating amusement parks finally age out of the market, how do you responsibly retire a modern city at sea? Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.